Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 is completing final preparations for a night flight to Beijing.
Would you fasten your seatbelt now, please?
227 passengers are on board.
Fuel pumps.
In the cockpit,
Check.
Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah is in command, an experienced pilot who's been with the airline for 33 years.
Flap set.
First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid is flying a Boeing 777 without an instructor for the first time.
Forward takeoff checklist complete. We're ready to go, Captain.
Good.
Malaysia 370, runway 32 right. You are clear for takeoff.
Malaysia 370's flight path will follow the air corridor that runs northeast over the Gulf of Thailand before continuing on to Beijing. The trip takes about 6 hours.
Malaysia 370.
Maintaining level 352.
20 minutes after takeoff, they reach cruising altitude, 35,000 feet.
When you get a big jet up to altitude and you've got to run autopilot, you've leveled off, you've run your cruise checklist, it really is time now to kind of throw the straps off and relax a little bit.
As the plane crosses the Gulf of Thailand, controllers in Vietnam will take over from controllers in Malaysian airspace. The controller in Kuala Lumpur makes one last transmission at 1:19 a.m.
370 contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night. Good night, Malaysia 370.
The crew is expected to contact Vietnamese controllers in less than 1 minute. But 19 minutes go by, and still no word from Flight 370.
Control, Malaysia 370.
Controllers in Vietnam and Malaysia try desperately to reach the plane.
Control, Malaysia 370. Do you copy?
There's no response from the cockpit, and no sign of the plane on radar. Flight 370 has vanished without a trace.
Ladies and gentlemen of the media, we are deeply saddened this morning with the news on MH370.
Stunned family members demand answers from the airline. But for now, the airline doesn't have any. Flight 370 seems to have just vanished into thin air. Malaysian authorities launch a massive search. Australia, the US, and China join the hunt. There's no sign of any wreckage.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
But 3 days after the plane's disappearance, the Malaysian military released their radar data. It appears that 3 minutes after its last radio call, Flight 370 inexplicably made a sharp turn off course. It's a startling development that fuels a whole host of theories.
The moment that it appeared that there was a shadowy trace of this airplane making a left turn immediately after the last radio call with air traffic control, the possibility of hijack jumps into your face.
Fly this plane to Australia now!
Crews have a number of ways to send out a distress signal. But air traffic controllers never received any emergency call from Flight 370. For the same reason, an onboard fire almost certainly did not happen.
The main problem with the fire scenario, not seeming likely to me, is the number one thing is that there was no radio call.
With an onboard emergency unlikely, authorities focus on a disturbing lead.
120.9. Good night. Good night, Malaysia 370.
2 minutes after the last voice communication from the cockpit, Flight 370's transponder cuts out. Transponders transmit information like flight number and position to controllers on the ground. Even more troubling, a few minutes after the transponder cuts out, the signal from the ACARS system also switches off. ACARS, Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System, uses satellites to transmit technical information between the ground and the aircraft in flight. but does not provide constant location data.
Turning off the transponder is extremely straightforward, extremely simple, even on a sophisticated jet like the 777. Turning off an ACARS is not so simple. It takes a lot of knowledge.
The only purpose of these systems is to communicate with the ground. And there's no obvious electrical connection why both would be going out, other than a human involvement.
Investigators are faced with a terrible question. Was all contact from Flight 370 cut off intentionally?